Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Alisa Loch, and I am the grassroots organizer for Results. So today we're going to be talking about Results Global Poverty Campaigns for this module with a focus on accelerating progress on maternal and child survival. And so for this session overview, we'll look at the current state of global child health and malnutrition, and then we'll look at the recent advocacy history and political opportunities that are available for us in 2020. And finally, we're going to look at epic messaging, which is powerful speaking, and then we'll get to take an action together. And so I want to kick this off with just a bit of fun fact, and I want you to think about these questions before I ask them. So my first question is, since 1990, deaths among children under the age of 5 years, do you think they have increased or decreased? Well, the answer is they have decreased drastically from 12.6 million in 1990 to about 5.3 million in 2018. However, we still have over 15,000 children who are under the age of 5 years that are still dying, which is very sad statistics. Now, my second question is, what do you think is the most dangerous day in a child's life? And the answer is the day they were born. 47% of under 5 deaths happen in the first month of life, the neonatal period, which is what we call the first 4 weeks from the time that a child is born. And then my last question is, most under 5 child deaths are preventable or treatable. Do you think that is true or that's false? That's true. And if it wasn't true, we would not have been able to achieve the tremendous success we've seen in cutting deaths of under 5 kids by half since 1990. So you do have an opportunity as an advocate to make a difference. Results 2020 campaigns are focusing on accelerating progress and increasing access to life-saving care to end the preventable deaths of moms and children. So with this map here, we can see that where a child is born still really determines her chance to survive. In 2017, half of all deaths under 5 years of age took place in sub-Saharan Africa, and another 30% in Southern Asia. These two regions bear most of the global burden of under 5 deaths. Together, the two regions account for more than 80% of the 5.3 million under 5 deaths. Sub-Saharan Africa remains the region with the highest under 5 mortality rate in the world, with 1 child in 13 dying before their 5th birthday. Now, this is actually 15 times higher than high-income countries, which the number is really 1 in 185. So basically, a child who's born in Africa is 15 times more likely to die before their 5th birthday as compared to a child who's born in a high-income country. We therefore have to prioritize providing universal access to quality health services for every child, no matter where they're born, no matter the country they're born in or even their zip code. Half of all under 5 deaths also occur in just 5 countries, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ethiopia. So this graph here shows us the top causes of death in children under the age of 5. And as you can see, the top 5 include preterm birth complications and other neonatal causes. We have diarrhea and pneumonia, birth asphyxia, congenital abnormalities, and malaria. And even though malnutrition really here doesn't shows up lower here than the actual danger of malnutrition, malnutrition really contributes to half of all under 5 deaths. So it's both a leading, actually a cause and a consequence of poverty. And so the next slide, I wanted to share with you a quote from Kul, who is our results board chair and also the former deputy director of UNICEF. And Kul said, the world produces enough food to feed every man, woman, and child on earth. Hunger and malnutrition are therefore not due to lack of food alone, but are also the consequences of poverty, inequality, and misplaced priorities. And that is true. So it's not a question of whether we have the resources. We do. We do know what are the causes of kids dying below the age of 5 years. We are aware of the solutions that are there, and we do have the resources to make it happen. So it's really a question of world leaders coming together and making it possible for the end of deaths for kids below the age of 5 years. Now, having enough food and the right kinds of diverse foods has become more of a challenge in the poorest households and also in fragile states. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, which is also called the FAO, reports that world hunger is on the rise for the third year in a row. The absolute number of undernourished people, and I mean those people who are facing chronic food deprivation, has increased to nearly 821 million in 2017 as compared to 804 in 2016. These are levels from almost a decade ago. The increase in hunger is mainly seen in conflict-affected and fragile states, though climate change and new weather patterns are also a factor in decreasing agriculture outputs in some of these hardest hit regions. So I'm going to share with you a couple of definitions you'll see around as you're working on malnutrition and stunting, and actually nutrition in general. So one of them is malnutrition, which basically means lack of proper nutrition, which can be caused by not having enough to eat, not eating enough of the right things, that is micronutrient deficiencies, or even just your body being unable to use the food that you're eating. And then we have stunting, which is a physical and cognitive damage that is caused by chronic malnutrition and is measured as low height for age. And then we have wasting, which is causing a person to become progressively weaker and more emaciated. It's again measured as low weight for height. Ensuring kids get a healthy start to life is really more about is about more than food aid or just adding calories to their diet. It's about making sure pregnant women and children have access to the essential micronutrients and vitamins, like iron, iodine, vitamin A, not just the calories, right? They need. And so proper nutrition during the period, which is the window starting with a woman's pregnancy and ending with a child's second birthday, sets a child on a path towards reaching their full potential. This is what we call the 1,000 days. And they have a profound impact on a child's life. We are talking about from their brain development to their IQ, to their immune system, to their growth. Once this essential window for physical and cognitive development closes for an individual child, it really does not reopen again. And so the consequences of early childhood malnutrition are devastating and permanent. But the good news is they're also entirely preventable. During pregnancy, infancy, and early childhood, the nutrition a child receives has an irreversible effect, for good or bad. Similarly to the map that I showed you before, when we were talking about deaths for kids below the age of 5 years, especially in African Asia, we can see again, based on this map, that the greatest burden of all forms of malnutrition is really shouldered by children and young people from the poorest and most marginalized communities. And to be specific, these two major continents, which is just Africa and Asia, perpetuating poverty across generations. Now, in 2018, more than half of all stunted children under the age of 5 lived in Asia, and more than 1/3 lived in Africa. Now, while UNICEF reports stunting has decreased globally, and this is true, but it has actually increased in Africa, with 8 million more children stunted annually since 2000. Childhood killers, infectious diseases like malaria and measles, etc., have decreased dramatically since 1990. And we saw that before, when we were going over the graph before. The youngest and most malnourished children still face the highest risk of falling ill to diseases, while healthier children have developed a stronger immune system to fight those diseases. According to a report from UNICEF, kids who suffer from severe undernutrition are actually 9.5 times more likely to die from diarrhea and 6.4 times more likely to die from pneumonia. Stunting really is a global problem. Although important progress has been made to reduce child stunting, stunting is declining too slowly and levels still remain unacceptably high. Now, if you look at the map again, you can see that UN agencies reporting that 149 million children under 5, which really represents 22% of all children under that age range, were affected by this condition in 2018. And, that just deprives many of them the opportunity to achieve their full potential before they even reach their school age. Globally, we have at least 1 in 3 children under the age of 5 who are not growing well due to malnutrition in its more visible forms. It could be stunting, it could be wasting, or even just being overweight. And then again, we have at least 1 in 2 children under the age of 5 suffering from hidden hunger due to deficiencies in vitamins and other essential nutrients. And basically, hidden hunger harms mostly children and women. We have the iron deficiency, which reduces children's ability to learn. And then you have the iron deficiency anemia, which increases women's risk of death during or shortly after birth. Some of the other things I've shared previously, like children who experience stunting, they may never reach their full cognitive potential. Children who experience stunting are at a higher risk of poverty, and they end up earning 20% less as adults. But the most important one, which I wanted to mention here, is really the economic impact on this, on malnutrition. And so the economic and societal implications of malnutrition are really immense. Malnutrition drains billions of dollars in lost productivity and healthcare costs. And the costs really here are just not addressed in lost potential, but really direct cost of treating nutrition-related issues, which is estimated to be about about $2 trillion globally. And yet less than 1% of official development assistance is directed to nutrition efforts. Ultimately, we do know that if we increase nutrition, it's proven to have enormous economic impact, boosting a country's GDP through greater workforce productivity and healthcare costs savings. We do also have findings, a research that was actually done in 15 African countries that proves that if we had a 40% reduction in stunting, they would increase 83 billion to their collective national incomes in the following years. Undernutrition and micronutrient deficiency during pregnancy causes 20% of maternal deaths and 800,000 on neonatal deaths annually. And we can also see like addressing deficiency in 2 key minerals really could substantially reduce preventable maternal deaths. And these 2 key minerals are iron, which, iron deficiency, which is what we call anemia, causes hemorrhage. And hemorrhage is really the leading cause in maternal deaths. And then you also have calcium, and calcium deficiency basically causes preeclampsia, which again is the second leading cause of maternal death. And so you can see, just ensuring that pregnant moms have access to iron and calcium, we could literally do away with the first and second, leading causes for maternal death. So we do know the solutions. The other thing to note as well here is adolescent malnutrition with pregnancy is a major contributor to maternal and child death. Pregnancy and childbirth complications are actually a leading cause of death for girls who are among the age of 15 to 19 years. So I want to ask, just as I pause there for a minute and ask, what do you think? I mean, when you think about everything that we've talked about with regards to kids who are dying below the age of 5 years, what interventions do you think make a difference in saving the lives of moms and kids? So really, not as complicated as you may think, right? With simple solutions like medicine, clean water, electricity, vaccines, we can change the reality for every child. around the world. More than half of under 5 deaths are due to diseases that are really preventable and treatable through simple, affordable interventions, as you can see on this chart, on this table here. And strengthening health systems to provide such interventions to all children will really save a lot of lives. Malnourished children, particularly those with severe acute malnutrition, have a higher risk of death from common childhood illnesses such as diarrhea, pneumonia, and malaria. And also nutrition-related factors contribute to about 45% of deaths in children under the age of 5 years. But the good news is, looking at this table, you can tell it's not that complex. It's encouraging moms who are pregnant to breastfeed, safe water, safe food, antibiotics, providing the vitamins and nutrients that are needed from when a mom is pregnant to all the way when a child is like 2 years old. And that's the good news, is that these things are possible. So in this next slide, I wanted to just share with you what has been done, literally just to track the progress back to 2012, see what has been done in building political will on child survival. So in 2012, world leaders came together for what was the Global Child Survival Call to Action, and they created a roadmap and global commitment around ending deaths for under 5 children. And then in 2013, there was the first Nutrition for Growth Summit. And then in 2015, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware and Senator Susan Collins of Maine, did the Reach Every Mother and Child, introduced the Reach Every Mother and Child Act for the first time. At the same time, the United States made a multi-year pledge to Gavi, which is a vaccine alliance that's making sure that kids in most marginalized places, communities, and continents are actually getting access to vaccines. And then at the same time, the UN Sustainable Development Goals reaffirmed their commitment to ending under 5 deaths. In the last 3 years, from 2017, with this current administration, the president issued proposed budgetary cuts on some of the development programs that we work on, and they included, global health and child survival programs. And in those 3 years, even with the 2 years when we had a Republican president, Republican House, and Republican Senate, we still saw a lot of, progress. I mean, with Congress stepping up and protecting some of these programs. And that would honestly not have happened without the support of our advocates, storming to those offices and fighting for these programs. And so in all those 3 years consecutively, these programs either remain the same in terms of funding or they got an increase. And that goes to show you it's a story of hope. And then in 2018, we had 263 members who signed on the Reach Every Mother and Child Act. In this year in particular, we've worked on the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. And in October, we had a bipartisan group of members of Congress who walked on the stage in France at the Global Fund Replenishment Conference in France and pledged to providing a third of its funding, full a third of the funding, which was 4.68 billion from the US government to fight or rather bring an end to AIDS, TB, and malaria. And we also had 2 resolutions, and I'm going to be talking about them in my next slides, that nutrition resolutions that were introduced both in the House and also in the Senate. So the political will is really urgently needed for meeting the twin goals to end preventable child and maternal deaths and also to reduce stunting. We do have key political moments in 2020 that we can be able to tap into in influencing change. The first one being between January and May, which is the appropriations season. Our advocates get an opportunity to work on things they care about. This is the time or the period when Congress is making decisions on federal budget, what goes where. And our advocates get to talk to their members of Congress. They get to advise them on funding levels for some of the programs that they care deeply about. And so we'll have a chance to work on Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. We'll have a chance to work on nutrition and also maternal and child health. And then in June, The Gavi Replenishment Conference will be in the UK. And then in December, alongside the 2020 Summer Olympics in Japan, world leaders will come together at a Japan-hosted summit to commit to building political will and increasing investments in the fight against malnutrition. So, think about as Olympians, the healthiest, strongest, peak performers from around the world are gathering to compete. We will also be having the global leaders making political pledges to ensure all children, no matter where they are born, have access to quality nutrition and the ability to reach their full potential. So pretty exciting times for next year. And then the whole year as well, we'll also be working on supporting the Reach Every Mother and Child Act, which again, it's a legislation that's working on holding USAID more accountable for saving lives for moms and children, especially below the age of 5 years. Congress has the power to act now, to be on the record in support of US leadership on global nutrition, and also to invest in these early years that are so critical to both physical and cognitive development. And so we do have two resolutions in the House. We have Representative Roger Marshall and Jim McGovern introduced House Resolution 189 in March, followed by Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Chris Coons of Delaware, who introduced the companion bill, S Resolution 260 in June. Now, both resolutions recognize the importance of sustained US leadership in accelerating global progress against maternal and child malnutrition, and also supporting USAID's commitment to global nutrition through its multi-sectoral nutrition strategy. And so we do have opportunities now, for you to reach out to your member of Congress, talk to them about nutrition, talk to them about child survival, talk to them about stunting, what's happening globally, the continents, Africa and Sub-Saharan African Asia, which really are leading in terms of, the numbers of stunted children. And even though with reports from UNICEF that it's declining, but we know it's still not at acceptable levels. And we also know in Africa, it's not really the same because it's still increasing since 2000 progressively by 8,000 annually. And so it is a global crisis and it needs to be addressed. And again, looking at the economic impact of that in countries where they're experiencing a lot of stunting, it's not, the numbers are not looking good. So this is what we call the EPIC Laser Talk in results. And this is a really powerful tool, speaking tool that you can use when you're talking to your member of Congress, whether you're writing a letter to them or you're even making a phone call, or we use that same model even when we are writing LTEs. And it's really a very straightforward and easy to remember model. Now, when you talk about engage, you're trying to get your listeners' attention. If you're meeting your member of Congress, you want to identify yourself. Who are you? Why are you meeting them, or why are you writing to them? You want to talk about the fact that you are a constituent from their district or from their state, and use that time to also maybe either thank them for the work that they've been doing for your community and your state within, or your city for the last number of years or months they've been in office. And then you identify the problem you want them to solve. And you have to do this with a lot of clarity. Explain what is the problem, why are you bringing it to the attention of your member of Congress, why should they care about that problem. This is also a really good place for you to really share a personal story. You might have a lived experience of what issue you're addressing with your member of Congress. This is a place to do that, and then inform on the solution. You have to paint a really clear picture to your member of Congress. Here is the solution, right? We do have a problem, but here's what's happening. We might have a resolution, we might have a legislation, maybe we need increased funding. Whatever it is that is a solution to you, this is where you put it. Tell them what is the solution that's existing currently and that you want them to support. And then finally, and this normally is like the most important part really, is a call to action. like never leave your member of Congress without having, asking a yes or no question. Yeah, save their time. Tell them, the question is, what do you want them to do for you? Do you want them to sign a resolution? Do you want them to sponsor a bill? Just be very clear. Include bill numbers. Even if you're writing it or you're making a phone call, or even if you're writing this as a letter, make sure you include all the details. Don't give them extra work to go and look for what resolution is this about nutrition. No, give them everything that they require. Include the people who even introduced the resolutions in Congress, so that you make their work easier when they're trying to address that issue. And so everything that I've talked about now put together in form of an epic message. This is what it would look like. So engage. Every parent has big dreams for their child, but too often malnutrition cuts those dreams short. Unfortunately, worldwide, hunger has been on the rise for the last 3 years. Again, as I say, this is a part, if you personalize it, introduce yourself as a constituent, say who you are, and then talk about that. And then talk about the problem. So globally, 1 in 2 children suffer from some form of malnutrition, including both undernourishment and obesity. Fighting malnutrition requires more than just providing food and making sure people get enough calories. It's also about making sure pregnant women and children have access to the essential micronutrients and vitamins like iron, iodine, and vitamin A they need to thrive. Inform on the solution. Investments in nutrition have a profound impact on a child's life, from their brain development to their IQ, to their immune system and physical growth. Every dollar invested in scaling up nutrition in the first 1,000 days yields a $35 return. Yet globally, less than 1% of all development assistance is for nutrition efforts. And then you do your call to action. To end preventable child and maternal deaths and to reduce stunting, U.S. foreign aid must prioritize improving nutrition. House Resolution 189 and Senate Resolution 260 recognize the importance of U.S. support for nutrition and call on Congress to make this a priority. Will representative name the name of your representative and the resolution, ask them to sign on it. And then you can do the same for the Senate side. Will the senator, show support on the resolution, sign on that resolution. And yeah, once you're done, send your email, then wait for the response. So that was it for today. We also have more messaging examples on our website. We have one of the most resourceful websites available for you as a new advocate or an existing one. If you go to the right-hand side this is how our website looks like, results.org. Go to the top right corner, you'll see a tab that says current volunteers. You just need to click on that. On your right, as you can see on Action Center, you have all these things available for you. On the left side, you do have the alerts, that action alerts we have available for you. And you can go and check some of the messages. We encourage you not to send form messages, so don't just go on the website and click and send it from our website. We want you to interact with real people, get to build a relationship with your legislative aide. And if you don't know who you really need to be sending your message to, please send me an email. As I said again, my name is Alice Alwatch. My email is alwatch@results.org. Send an email to me. I'll be happy to get you a direct email of the person you need to be getting in touch with. Personalize your message and start building relationship with your legislative aides and staff members for your members of Congress. I hope this was really helpful, and I wish you a good day ahead. Have a good one. Bye-bye.